All right, all right, all right. Back once again with the ill behavior. Hey, it's complicated. Let's go ahead and get right into it.
Why is it more socially acceptable for women to hate men than it is for men to hate women?
Because men are the devil.
Because men are trash. Well, you know what? See, I'm contributing to the stigma. But like there's more sus men than there are sus women. It's just facts, and that's all I got to say about it. So it's a double standard because there's more sus men than there are sus women.
What are you even talking about? More sus men than there are sus women. Look, men are upfront about it. They want box. You know what I mean? We might be doing some finagling to try to get that box, but we're pretty upfront about it. We're not gonna sit there and ruin your life 20 years later. Play the long game. Take your kids and you have your crap and all this other stuff. Women are sus for sure, and you should be suspect of all women and guard your situation. I'm not saying don't trust all women. That's not what I'm saying at all. Like these women talking about men are trash. No, but you should always be a little bit suspect of somebody who has every incentive to make and then break contractual arrangements with you. I'm just saying.
The end.
Should anybody be hating anybody?
No.
No.
If it's acceptable for women to hate men, how are men and women ever supposed to get together?
Good question. Good question.
That is a good question.
I don't think it's acceptable for women to hate men.
It's not really acceptable for women to hate men unless they give us a reason to.
We're getting a phone call.
Look at that. Unless we give them a reason to. Look, there's no reason you should hate men, plural, right? No woman should hate men. No men should hate women. It's okay that you have strong negative feelings about a specific man or a set of specific men, right? But to hate all men, to hate all women, like something wrong with you. You're broken. You're broken. You need therapy or something.
Hello.
Should men be willing to go to war and fight for a country that hates them?
Absolutely not. I don't think war makes sense to me. It makes absolutely no sense to me.
I don't think war is ever the answer.
And none of them answered the question. I don't think war is the answer. It makes no sense to me. That's not what he said. He said, should men be willing to go to war for women? I mean, come on.
No, absolutely not.
Ever.
No.
I think men naturally are more athletic, they're stronger than women, whether we like to admit it or
Which men are you talking about?
not. It's the truth.
If men are more valued in society than women, why would they be the first ones sacrificed in war?
Because they think they're more valued. They're being paid for more for everything. So you put your ass online.
Woman would never be seen fighting, right? So it was the man's job. It was their duty. Kind of that was like the gender role then. I don't agree with it now, but then that's probably what it would have been.
Have you ever personally been denied the right to vote?
Never. No.
No.
Would you give up your right to vote if it meant you got drafted into the army?
Because that's what men have to do. Okay. They literally can't vote unless they sign up for the draft, which sucks because women can't vote unless you sign up for the draft. That doesn't make any sense.
Yes.
Would you give up your right to vote if it meant you got drafted into the army?
No.
I probably would not vote.
What if I told you that voting rights originally required you to be drafted into war and own land?
Voting rights do require you to be drafted, right? Like, if you, as a man, if you don't sign up for selective services, then you can potentially lose your right to vote. I don't know if it's potential or how it works. Maybe you just don't get it. I don't know exactly how that works, but lose your right to vote, and you lose access to financial aid, right? You can be arrested. There are quite a few consequences for men who don't sign up for selective service. Now, does that mean you're ever going to be drafted? No. And should most people join the military nowadays? It's definitely not what it used to be. So, I don't know.
And
I remember back in the beginning of the United States, that was the law. I remember that. I read it in books.
And I think
This is like, I remember back in the beginning of the United States, there was a law. I remember that. Woman, you weren't there. But I'm glad you know your history.
I think like sometimes I know like to apply for colleges, like boys have to, or if you want scholarships, you have to agree to be drafted as well, which I think is crazy.
why are the men of today expected
It's not crazy. It's not crazy. The reason why they developed that was because of war, right? Because we were going through all these things as a new nation, right? And so they needed to make sure that the people who were making decisions, right, for our governing bodies had skin in the game. That's what it's all about. If you got skin in the game, then you're not just going to vote willy nilly for your, based on your feelings, this and that. You're going to think, you're going to be like, okay, well, I own land, I have a family, I have property, I got like these things I have to lose, right? So I need to make sure that the people who I'm voting in these positions are in favor of, are in alignment with my values and whatnot, right? Like as opposed to just, oh, I want free shit. Here we go, and that's where we're at right now. Free, 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 free. I'll vote for whoever's giving away the most free shit, right?
Pay for the sins of the men of the past.
Because they still keep making the same mistakes.
So is feminism about revenge?
No, feminism is about our right to be allowed.
I think it's a base level of equality that we're trying to reach.
We're way beyond a base level of equality. Don't talk about we're trying to reach a base level. We're way beyond it. All the rules favor women, all the education, job situations, like all this stuff is built to appease, to work for women's favor, right? And then you talk about court systems and all that crap, you know what I mean? It's all in women's favor, like it's not for men. And I'm not complaining. I'm saying this is the case, right? And the reason why this is the case is because historically, women didn't have a lot of power. They were left with a lot of liability. You know what I mean? If a man could just leave you and, whatever, like that's why this stuff existed. The problem is now we're way, way, way past that, And so women are using this to get it back. I'll repeat it. I saw a TikTok where this girl said, any woman out there who has 6 babies by the same dude is stupid. If you get 6 babies by the same dude, you can only have X amount of his paycheck. But if you get 6 babies by 6 different dudes, then you get 6 times the child support. That is wild. That shouldn't exist, right? But these women have learned how to scam the system, and the system don't give a damn that they're being scammed because that is a resource extraction mechanism from men, pulls resources from men, goes through the system, which they benefit, take their cut, and are distributed to women, right? And the rest of society in the form of taxes. So.
Over here, and as long as we can get to that, then I think we're chilling, but we got a long way to go.
Yeah.
Wage gaps and shit, absolutely whack.
Wage gaps and shit, absolutely debunked. Take your ass to work fucking 60 hours a week on high rises, scraping windows, or doing power lines or any of that. You're going to get paid the same as a dude. Okay, sit around in a cushy office, typing away on some IT work, right? Like the profession is a little more, cutthroat. You're not getting paid as much. I'm just saying. Be an electrician, be a plumber, be any of these things. Go shovel, coal, right? Lay concrete and asphalt, all right? You're going to get paid the same.
Maybe more now than when
you might actually get paid more, and you're going to get hired before the dude standing next to you. Just saying.
started. When it started, women just wanted to be recognized, but some like any other thing, like even religion or anything, it went overboard.
I think we hold a lot of grudges in our society, not just for men, but for a lot of things in the past, and we need to do a better job at staying present.
Why did the women of the past, who had less rights, also have less hatred for men than the women of today?
Because of social media.
Because they couldn't say anything. They were depending on the man. If they say anything, the man would just beat her or stop paying for her or ignore her completely.
All these women would think, not every man was beating his wife. If every man was beating his wife, then we wouldn't have society the way that it is now, right? There would have been a serious problem. Same thing with stop paying for her stuff and this and that. Not every dude was doing this. Y'all take the far crazy portion of it, and that's what it is now.
I think it was just a cultural thing. Now we're having more conversations about inequality, and a lot of emotions come up, and it turns into...
We're actually not having conversations about inequality. Women, some sector of women, and then some dudes who are also participating in this are screaming for quote-unquote equality when we're way beyond equality, right? There are so many things set up for women, and they don't exist for men at all. They just don't exist. And remember, in this world, if a woman fails, she has this safety net, this safety net, this safety net, all these safety net. And if a man fails, he's just out on the streets, just straight up.
To hatred for a lot of people.
Why do you think that young women today feel more oppressed despite the fact that they didn't go through the hard times that older women supposedly went through?
Because of social media.
Because young people today expect everything in their without working for it.
As we've seen times change, we've come to realize that we need to be treated equally. And with the creation of social media, there's come with a lot of like unrealistic standards for women, like along with beauty standards as well.
Unrealistic standards for women. That's the only standard that you guys are worried about is beauty standards. You're worried about the next woman's ass being fatter than yours, eyelashes being longer than yours, boobs being bigger than yours, blah, blah, blah. The men, we have to deal with some serious unrealistic standards, right? Make $1 million a month, drive a Bugatti, right? You're partying, they're doing this, taking trips and buying handbags and blah, 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 blah. Because that's what y'all watch. That's what you see. And then that's what you expect from the men. So now the men have no, like you either are up here at the top 5% or you're barely even seen, right? Because you're out here average, right? But the average woman, you average, okay, can end up with a dude, well, at least sexually, can end up with a dude who's making a bunch of money. You know what I mean? And that's all you want. That's the issue. Right now, your standards are way up here. You know what I'm saying? Men, I could be wrong, but I'm just going to say that men in general have a much higher unrealistic standard to live up to, right? Because it's not just about being pretty. Look, most of these women, they're born a certain way. If they just kept their butt in the gym, didn't eat the crazy things that they, that they be eating or whatever, kept the weight off, most of them would get married. They would find a man who could, provide for them, who would love them and who would take care of them. Most of them would absolutely meet the expectation of most men. The problem is they don't meet the standard of most women, right? Women are setting the standard for women. Okay, women are also setting the standard for men. Some men are blowing that weight out of proportion because they're providing this, that, and the other to these women who are then boxing out the men who can't provide that stuff, right? So again, I'm saying men have a much higher, maybe it's not higher, but we have a lot more shit that we have to be able to achieve. We got to have status. We got to have game. We got to have good looks. We got to have money. We got to have competence. We got to have ambition. We got to be funny. We got to have, all these things, right? You don't have to have none of that. You just got to not weigh 250 pounds. You know what I mean? If you're a 5 and you're squared away, like, weight wise or whatever, keep your figure legit and you're not a raging, B word, like you will absolutely no problem find a dude who will meet all the metrics that you're looking for.
With like behavioral standards, like there's a lot of pressure on women to act a certain way and look a certain way.
The only pressure that men are putting on women to act a certain way is we don't want y'all to be a B. We, don't be bitching and complaining every single day about nonsense that don't really, that isn't like huge. Don't be like disrespectful. Like these are not up ridiculous standards to achieve. Men have to go out and make a bunch of money and do a bunch of these things, right? Achieve a bunch of these goals in order for you to even look at him, because the average guy, he's not even getting looks, right? All you have to do is not be crazy. Don't be a B and keep yourself relatively in shape. Feminine. Keep your femininity. These are not ridiculous standards. This is stuff you are born with, and all you have to do is keep it. That's it. Men aren't born with jack crap that you want. We have to develop it all.
Media, like that is one thing that you cannot deny. And whereas there's the same thing with men where it's like 6-packs on billboards, but you see a lot more women plastered on these billboards with these beauty standards.
I'm just saying nowadays it's Lizzo, right? Like what are the standards that you guys got to live up to? I'm just saying.
And behavioral standards, especially depicted in movies.
Why don't we acknowledge that if women had it bad, men usually had it worse? Weren't men also oppressed?
Well, there's always been an oppression because there's always been more, like even white men, they were richer, and then there were richer and kings and this and that. So there's always been oppression, and there'll probably always be, even though it's not a good thing.
Didn't men have harsher tasks placed upon them? Weren't men sacrificed under more hazardous conditions?
Perhaps, but they also...
Perhaps. You can't just be like, yes.
required women to do specific things, and they were not allowed to do things that men could do.
What was that? What were these things that you wanted to do that you weren't allowed to do? Vote, go to war, own property. Like, these are all the talking points, right? But we all know that there are plenty of women out there that did own property, right? And we know that most women don't want to go to war, right? And we know that, when it comes to voting, I mean, if you don't have no skin in the game, you know what I'm saying? Like, but if you own property, then you'd have some skin in the game. I'm just saying.
Back then, women weren't allowed to work. They had to stay home. So,
were they not allowed to work, or did they not want to work? And when we're talking about work, we're talking about working in like a job somewhere. Because from what I understand, all women at home worked. Right, it was a lot of damn work working these homes back in the day. Okay, I mean, whether you owned a farm or a ranch or whatever, you know what I mean, or just a piece of property, women were always doing things, right? Things around the house, things for the children, you know what I mean, out there. God knows, like, there was a lot happening. If you want to go all the way back to tilling fields and stuff, then they were doing washboard shit. You know what I'm saying? Like, women have always worked, right? Whether you are working at a job for another man, right, who pays you a salary, the argument is that better than working at home for your man who pays you with a family and a home and all of that, right? I mean, that's the real argument that we should be talking about.
That's why it seems like men had all the trouble.
They were expected to take care of their families, their wives, put food on the table, like back in the day, and they didn't, they just did it. They didn't.
And we're still expected to do so. The difference is that the woman that the man got who did this, 50, 60, 80, 100 years ago, whatever, the woman that he got doing all this work, right? She brought a lot to the table, to the relationship, right? She didn't just have kids. She put in work at home and on the family, right? Nowadays, women don't want to do all that, but they still want the same traditional dude, right? And even the women that want to work, right? They have their jobs. They say, oh, my career, this, that, blah, 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 blah. But then you ask them, okay, when you're pregnant, when you have kids, what's the percentage of the amount of financial resources that you want to contribute to the family, right? Most of them say zero. They don't want to work. They want to raise their kids, like most of them. So what is the point of you going out and being this boss bee just to have a kid and stay home and raise the kid anyway? Like, that doesn't make any sense. And now you got a bad attitude because you've been, on the grind like me for 10 years or whatever, right? Like, that doesn't make any sense, man. It's not computer.
Care about, say, coal mining or, jobs like that. Like, they didn't think about the health stuff and like that.
Right. Do you know how many men died building the Hoover Dam?
Yes, or the railway in BC. It was expected of them, and they just went to work, and the women were supposed to take care of the house. And
if society was controlled by men, patriarchy, how would feminism be a movement that's gained traction without the help of men?
Check this out. You guys need to calm down on feminism, because I'm not taking out trash.
Yeah, and she ain't building no railways, okay? She ain't gonna build the Hoover Dam either, right? Like, that's really what we're talking about, right? There's so many jobs that women just are never going to do. They don't want to do it. There's a fraction of a percent of women that will want to do those jobs, especially here in Western worlds, right? Like, you can't argue for equality without acknowledging that you don't really want equality.
I mean, that crane behind you, how'd you like to be crawling up on that construction crane right there?
Are we allowed to? I'll do it right now.
All right, let's do it.
I wouldn't.
Yes.
It took men.
But are you going to go up on that? Are you going to go up on that crane carrying 50 pounds worth of wire and a tool belt, right, and a hard hat and big ass boots and gloves so you don't get electrocuted, right, and all that? Like, are you going to do that in the middle of the afternoon, right? Because you shouldn't be working at night. Oh shit, all that good stuff.
To back the women, but the women started it. I mean, we still, even though we're feminists, we still need men just to have babies.
Patriarchy doesn't mean that men control every single narrative out there. I just think that because men are typically in those more powerful positions, that's what creates it. But it doesn't mean women still don't have a voice.
Where did all these laws come from that protect women and punish men?
overbalance. Before, nobody would, like, women were completely left to themselves, and they started taking power and they went overboard. We should be more in the middle.
I'm not sure exactly what laws you're talking about.
Well, like family courts, things like that.
I don't know where they came from, but actually, when I was little, I really wanted to be a divorce attorney for dads because I felt it was really unfair.
You wanted to be a divorce attorney for dads, but you don't know where the laws came from? Like, we all know where the laws came from. They came from women being loud about the situation that they were in at the time because they had a lack of rights. They had a lack of ability. You know, when men would leave their women, their families or whatever and go off and do crazy thing, women were stuck holding the bag with no type of income, no skill set, no this, right? And so that is where the correction came into play. But now women have, it's a completely level playing field out there as far as work is concerned. But all that other stuff, the correction part, the we're trying to do for this part of the species that can't necessarily or doesn't have the ability based off our laws to provide for themselves, right? Now you have these laws, these archaic laws that are still in place for these women who have the ability, have every opportunity, and now have the game, right, to take over and to manipulate these laws to their ability, right?
That they weren't well represented.
Can you think of any behaviors people used to have that are no longer acceptable by today's standards?
Well, the husband were coming back from work and expecting his wife to be all dressed up, all with the meal on the table and the pipe and the glass of scotch, and it's too much.
If you're doing nothing all day, then why not? Why is that too much? What is that woman doing all day that makes it so that he can't expect that? And let's just be clear, if that dude is working all day, busting his butt to provide a life for that woman, right? Unless she's also at work all day helping to provide a life for that man, then the argument holds true, right? But if she's busting her butt all day so that she can have Prada bags and whatever, injections and this, that, and the other, and he's busting his butt all day paying all of their bills, like, that shit doesn't add up, man. It doesn't. You can at least, you got to participate in some fashion in this family, right?
You can't cancel somebody for something that, like, the cancel culture is like they go back and try to cancel people for stuff that happened a long time ago, but that was a different time, so in that time it was okay. Now the cancel culture in this day and age, I feel like, are a bit much, because some of the things are like, yeah, I understand, but some of the things are like, okay, like,
So should people be held accountable by today's standards for behaviors that were acceptable at the time?
yes, they should be held accountable.
Isn't that cancel culture?
Yes and no. I think there should be a conversation so that people can grow, but to expect people to have been perfect their entire lives and to hold them to what happened in the past, I just think is not okay.
History literally repeats itself, from like crimes to clothing to just everything, treatment of people, everything literally gets repeated.
Today we have mass shootings, climate change, the culture war, inflation, poverty, human rights, cancel culture, etc. What's better and what's worse?
Some of those things are arguable.
All of it is horrible, thanks to Joe Biden.
There's bad things in our history.
She said thanks to Joe Biden. He's been in office for about 5 minutes. Why? None of the crap that he's done, typically we won't see the effects of that crap until the next term, right? Why are you saying that he's the guy that has caused all this? He is not.
There's good things in our history. There's bad things right now. There's good things right now. I think it's all about what you choose to focus on.
What does your ideal society look like?
Great economy, low gas prices, low interest rates.
Freedom, people expressing who they are, not judging other people for who they are.
Yeah, and that's where I'm going to end it. They kind of go on and on a little bit. And the reality is, we are in a massive overcorrection, and some things need to change, and they will change. It's going to happen naturally, right? Because men are going to stop doing these things. They're going to stop taking it. They're going to start planning, getting their stuff dialed in, hopefully. and then eventually somebody's going to lose it in the pocket. It's not just going to be men, but somebody else is going to start losing money in the pocket, right? And once that happens, that's when change happens, right? I'm not saying that it's going to be better. Who knows what it's going to be, but change usually happens when people start losing in the pocket. Anyways, Ill Bill, I'm out, man. It's complicated. Check this dude out. Like his channel. He's awesome. All right, y'all. Peace.